Hey everybody, welcome to She Ventures Out. I am Kiana Williams, your host and executive coach, author, and I am so excited about today's episode. I have with me Chevonne Harris, who is the CEO of ThriveIN, which you are going to hear all about here shortly. But before we dive in, a couple things about Siobhan. So not only is she the CEO, but she's also the founder. ThriveIN is a company dedicated to helping businesses and individuals not just grow, but thrive. So Siobhan is a brand strategist, nationally published journalist, which we're going to hear about all of these amazing pivots, and the visionary behind WorkSpace, which is so revolutionary, something that we are going to talk about here too, which is an innovative program to equip Black millennial women with the resources, confidence, and community they need to break barriers and accelerate their careers. So whether you are an emerging leader, a corporate executive, this conversation is for you because the nuggets that Siobhan surely will drop today will benefit us all. So welcome to the show, Siobhan.
Thank you so much. I love a good introduction. So that was fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you are fabulous, and our listeners are sure to hear that as we get into the discussion. So for those who don't know about your journey, start us out by telling us about ThriveIN and why you decided to launch it.
Yeah. So, okay, let me give you the most abbreviated version because it was a whole God move as well. And so I've worked in marketing for almost 15 years now. And so I initially started doing like little dinners and meetups of Black women in Columbus. I have always been enthused about the empowerment of Black women. At one point in my life, I was going to throw it all away, go to New York and be Black Carrie Bradshaw and work for Essence. I would tell my bosses, like, if Essence ever calls me, I will quit. Then I realized journalists really ain't make no money back in the day. So I was like, okay, let's pivot. And so at some point I started convening Black women and working on this brand. And, it was Door Color, then something else, and it was a blog. And then I said, okay, I think I want to put some real formalities around this. And what really made ThriveIN crystallize for me was in June of 2020, following the murder of George Floyd. So think about it. If we go back to 2020, we are, in March, we had COVID. And then you have the murder of this Black man that was, broadcast around the world, and somehow it became contentious, the taking of a human life, which, that's a whole other topic.
Absolutely.
And what happened was around that time, I was working like crazy. I worked for a small business owner. And so when COVID hit, we went into overdrive, as a lot of small businesses did. So there was the stress of that. But then I would meet with my friends and, people were breaking down saying, I'm showing up being expected to talk about accounting, and my phone is blowing up with images of this man who could have been my father, my brother, my husband. Does no one get what this is? Who do I talk to? I'm stuck in the house about this. And then at the same time, what we saw happen was after the murder of George Floyd, we really saw in such a beautiful way the explosion of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so a lot of conversations around diversity and the lack thereof got really heightened. We've known forever that there's a lack of representation in the workplace, and the career trajectories of Black women especially are often stunted. But when George Floyd happened, it's kind of like, the light bulb got brighter. It's like, I want to talk about all these things. It's now so blatant, all of these things. And so for me, as a human, as a Black woman, and as a marketer, I said, okay, Siobhan, all of these different things that you've been doing, writing blogs and dinners and blah, 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 blah. The need is in the work for the career, because we put so much into how we show up for work. And we know that we're ambitious. We are the highest, attainers of degrees of degreed individuals in this country. And so we enjoy it. A lot of Black women do. I'm not mad at y'all who just want to go garden. Please go. And so the idea for ThriveIN just started to come. And so I did some surveying as a marketer to quantify, this idea that I had. And I found out that it wasn't just, my five people circle of women. There were Black women all over Columbus and beyond who were feeling these things and were wanting a roadmap, a community. How do we unlock access to not only advancing your career, but to do it and, enjoy, and to do it where you're navigating a lot of the barriers that have really stunted Black women. And so that is really how ThriveIN, got to be what it was. And again, at some point, God stepped in and said, okay, girl, go figure it out. Here's my vision, go carry forth.
Well, And I love that because, as a Black woman who has, been at every level of an organization and seen the very things that you're talking about, I love the fact that Thrive In wasn't just about how do I help people succeed, how do I help people advance, but you also were really tapping in to what was going on inside of people, right?
Mhm.
Like there's so much talk about well-being and so much talk about wellness, but as you articulated, right, people could not fully show up as
No.
themselves. And Thrive In was designed in part to kind of fill that gap.
Oh, absolutely. And my thing is, we are Black women, and so we know how to work. And so I'm like, we work too hard, too long, and contribute too much value to the organizations and the communities that we serve to do it and to not do it with joy, to do it and to not have the ease that a lot of our counterparts, men, white women have. And so after a while, it's like, let's bring some equity to our journeys and what the journey to thriving looks like. And so, it just it's such a must because, again, I tell people I'm not working 40, 60 hours for nothing. And I'm also not trying to do that forever. And so let's figure out the strategy to get me away from all of that very quickly.
So, Siobhan, you just used a word that has been, heavily
Mm,
scrutinized lately, equity, right?
mhm.
And so would love to get your take on the power that Thrive In has to create systemic change, right? To, advance this idea of equity.
Yeah, and so I think first with Thrive In, we address the woman. Our core and our mission is really centered in Black Gen Z and Millennial women, and then secondary women of color. And I tell people after that, if you love Black women and want to see us thrive, please come to my party. Otherwise, And so, I say that to say it first starts with understanding your full self. What do you want in life? What is causing you stress in life and keeping you up at night? What do you want out of a career? And how can we help you get that? And how do you have self advocacy? How do you have additional talent and skills within that? And understand, here are all the networks, all the allies that you need to get there. So we start with equipping Black women to thrive within this highly, crazy environment that we're in. And so that's A, because again, we offer so much to everyone. And what type of contributor are we going to be if our piece is not protected and we're not showing up well? Generationally, what type of ideas are we passing down to our daughters and our children and, the little boys on how to treat Black women in their lives? And so, again, I start with Black women at the center of everything that I do. Another part of Thrive In that we do, is we work with companies to really help them create these diverse talent of pipelines of talent. And I say that to say, I start with companies and say, who are you at your core? Who are you at? What are your values? And if you are telling me that you are a company who at your core values inclusivity, values equity, and values, representation that is as equitable as the customers and communities that you serve, we can do something there. Because where I feel the gap with Thrive In and what starts to create some systemic change is, yes, we address the women and how they show up as their full selves, but we also help companies who may have passion in diversity and equity, but may not have expertise. And, with us, we have built a community of 12,000 strong, soft flex, of talented, capable Black women who want to work and want to offer value to these companies. And so we say to companies, we can amplify your culture, we can be an ally and help to show the good work and the good heart that you have to a lot of these diverse candidates within our network. We can also come in if you have ERGs and BRGs and you may not have the expertise on how to engage those audiences. We can be a thought partner with you in doing that. And we can also, the marketer in me, says, and this is all for all my business owners, price out all this stuff. This is all a menu that all with different costs and fees and timelines. But we can also come in and help you create some very focused, strategies that really help you to expand your candidate pool. And how do we help you get more retention, especially across underrepresented communities within the workspace? And how do we help amplify your company across diverse audiences? Because what we do know is that companies who are very authentic and intentional in diversity and equity from internal to external, it reflects in their sales, in their numbers. And so we can be a thought partner in all of that. And that's how that systemic change happens. Again, Black women, we are helping you to advocate, helping you to prioritize yourself so you know when to say no, when to say yes, when to pull a Michelle Obama and say, no, I'm not coming. And we help these companies to say, here's a culture where Black women are seen, heard, and valued. And all of that is the systemic change that will never stop and can never stop.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I love the idea of first starting with the woman, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think about, as an HR leader, one of the things that, was often my mantra is, we have to put our people first. We have to put our people first. And in a way, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Because as you are investing in these women, right, they are returning to their organizations, right, in a better place, right, at their highest, so that they can contribute in a more powerful way. And so, what I'd love for you to talk a little bit about is the power of that development, right? The power of the network, the power of the connections that you just talked about. Because when people come into your organization, right, they are one way. And when they leave your organization, right, they're a different way. So, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and our tagline at ThriveIN is we help Black women thrive in work and life. And that aspect of community is so helpful because so much of how we view ourselves, how we show up for companies is tied to how we think about ourselves and how we teach people how to treat us. And so again, we go in first saying, okay, what do you think of yourself? What is your confidence? What is your value? If you come to our WorkSpace session, usually that first one, everybody crying because we get deep because we're like, before we even talk about work, take your coat off. And let's really go deep in what's in your heart, your mind, your dreams, your all of that stuff. And so let's get very clear about that. And the cookie on top, or the cherry on top, is you are in a room of like-minded women. And it is a true safe space where you can have that vulnerability to start to uncover what that looks like. And then what we say is, okay, we're attacking you as a human and what it means for you as specifically a Black woman, because that is different. We've attacked that. And so let's now start to create, and let's not gatekeep on what are the skills, what are the resources that you need, how might you have to be nimble, how might you have to be agile within your career, within your organization, so that you can get to what you want. And part of that is the community of like-minded women. We also bring in women who are C-suite leaders, who are entrepreneurs, who have reached, very high levels in their respective careers and industries, Black women who can say, here's how I did it. Girl, here's where I went wrong. Here's what they're not going to tell you in the everyday leadership programs. And we don't gatekeep, and we don't just approach it as career development. We approach it as career development and personal development for Black women. That is very different. That is very different when we start to think about, okay, I've seen my mother work my entire life. So of course I am showing up doing 60 hours a week. Or, I also have children and I'm a provider for my family. And so my ambition is a little bit different. Or I'm a mother who now wants to scale back, but that is unfortunately, revolutionary for Black women to want to do that. And so what does all that mean while still attaining? And so we focus on the skill set with the experts who have did it. I always tell people our strategies are true, tried, and trusted for and by Black women. And again, we are very intentional in also coupling that with wellness and making sure that you have that confidence, that you have a positive and a strong sense of self, and that you have this community to do it. And I tell people, for me as the founder and CEO of ThriveIN, if there is a gap in what we offer, let me know and we will fill it. If I can connect you to somebody, if I can send an email, if I can, connect you to an executive coach or blah, 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 or get you wherever, we will do that. And so our customers, it's very personal. And again, we really look at it in a holistic way, for and by Black women. And that has been a consistent key differentiator for us.
Yeah, I love that. And Siobhan, something that you said actually just was an epiphany for me as well. So I was having breakfast with a friend. He's a CEO of a large nonprofit organization, and he was talking about listening to the podcast. And he said, I know a lot of the episodes are geared towards individuals, but I'm listening as the CEO of an organization, thinking about my culture, thinking about what keeps people in my organization and what could be driving people away. And so speaking of gatekeeping, I imagine you have learned a lot about what's happening in organization that is creating that weight on people, that is making people think about leaving, right? Because you talked about being able to help retain. So what are some of the things that you are learning, right, that creates great culture, and what are the things that you're learning that creates a culture where people can't thrive, where they don't feel like they belong?
Yeah, people are burnt out, and I think that we saw that in COVID. And millennials, I always say we have one foot back and one foot forward. It's just our generation. We were part of that grind mentality, and now we're figuring out, okay, wait, how do I grinding ain't cute? And so people are just tired. The ambition hasn't changed and the passion for the work has not changed. And it's a fair expectation that why should I have to work, 35, 40 hours to get what I want out of life. And this is not all that I want out of life. So there's that. And part of that comes with understanding that, your people are also humans who have lives very robust lives outside of the 8 hours a day. And so how can you create cultures that understand that are nimble to that, and the work still gets done? Because what we've also seen with some companies, you can do 30 hours a week and still be productive. There are studies that show that working mothers show up for 20 to 25 hours and they're doing the work of someone else in 40 hours because of course they know how to multitask and be efficient. So there's that. There's also, women are not feeling appreciated and valued. And that is such a big thing. People will show up for you differently. They will work the late nights. They will, learn the new skills in a blink of an eye when they know that they are valued and they know that their contributions to the company mean something. And so when people don't feel appreciated, when they feel like they are one in the number, what loyalty do I have to the brand, to my job, to my team? I'm just coming in and doing my job. And there is a lot of that. And when we talk about retention, that is not how you retain great talent. That is not how you start to build a pipeline of advancement within your culture as well. And then what we're also seeing, there are some intergenerational gaps. And again, millennials and Gen Z, I feel old, but the kids, they're not trying to do all the things. They're very much, how can I get to the goal in half the time and with half the work? And a lot of your more tenured individuals in the workplace are kind of like, that ain't how I did it. So how dare you want to do it differently and not in as much time as I did? And so it's, how do you resolve a lot of that? And to be honest with you, there's also just sheer racism that is still happening in a lot of cultures, and sheer discrimination. There are, and I see this all the time, talented women who are not getting the mentorship and the guidance that they need. They're getting passed over for opportunities, yet they're in the background doing so much work. And so at that point, I wouldn't stay in a relationship like that. So why would I stay with an employer like that as well? And so, and then again, some people just don't want to work. And I'm also not mad at that. I think that is an act of liberation for Black women. If you have the means, go travel, go garden, go lay in the grass all day, if that's what you want to do. And so some women, what they want out of life is different, and that is not bad. And so they are starting to think, how do I cultivate a life where I work less and get more out of life beyond my work? And so it is so much. And again, that is why that access, that community, and that guidance is needed, because a lot of this is new territory for Black women, especially. That is not, we have not always shown up for work and thought about ourselves first and what we want. Oh, I got to clock in. I got to do this. I'm a little sick. I still got to go. I want to get this, and I got to buy the house, and I got to get the degree, and blah, 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 versus saying, do I want that?
Yeah.
And I think I don't. So how can we make this different?
Yeah. I think that's powerful. So some of the things I'm hearing you say are, make sure that your culture is tapped into the whole person,
Absolutely.
right? Make sure that, we are allowing new thinking around what does work even look like, right? How do we allow people to flex and experience life in its fullness? But then also check both conscious and unconscious biases that are happening in your organization at every level. And, that path to promotion as, a derailer for people, right? Something that, doesn't create stickiness for organizations. So assessing that. So
Absolutely.
love all of those. Thank you. Which is actually a really nice segue into WorkSpace. So let's talk about a little bit about WorkSpace, what you intended with that, what it is, how it has become so powerful. I actually sent it to my daughter the other day.
Tell her to come on. We would love to have her. So WorkSpace, for those who are not familiar with the program, we are in our 4th year, which is crazy to say, but it is a professional and personal development program for Black women. And I always tell people, and a part of our description is, we help Black women create the glass-breaking confidence that they need to thrive in and out of the office. And so, we typically keep it intimate. So it's about 20 to 25 women. And the only thing, it is first come, first serve. I am a firm believer that access should not be exclusive. And so if you want to do it, there are no long applications and nominations and all these things. You can be on the fast track to the C-suite. You can also be, a hairstylist, or you can also be working at, Target. And if you want to do this, please come. And we have resources to help you do it. And so it is an 8-month program, and we've just now condensed it into 4 months. And we talk about, and we, directly address a lot of the things that I've been mentioning. How do you advance in your career as a Black woman? Because we have to be a little more nimble in terms of how we do that. What are the things that you need to kind of sidestep around? Who are the leaders that can help get you there? What does it mean to interview? How do we attack your confidence? How do we show you wellness? And you're also immersed in a community, very intimate, of like-minded women who share your ambition, who understand, maybe you can't talk about this in your friend circle because professional aspirations are so diverse and life stages are so diverse. But you're in a community of women who get it. We all kind of want to advance in our career. We all see the barriers. Let's talk about it. There's some mothers, there's some wives, there's some single girls, there's old, there's young, all this, because we're not a monolith, but we all do have a unifying denominator of wanting to thrive in work and in life. And that is really what WorkSpace is. And it's been such a beautiful program that has grown beyond what I have thought. People come in these rooms, and again, that first session, everybody crying. And I'm like, wait a minute. At the end of it, people are saying, Siobhan, this changed my life. They are tripling their salary. They are leaving. They are getting on boards. They are finding the confidence to quit their jobs. They are finding the confidence to go start new businesses. They come in and say, I had that meeting with my boss where I asked for more money. And for a lot of women, that's scary. And they've done that. They found the confidence to pivot in their career, and not just the confidence, but the strategies to do it and do it in a smart way that gets you the ROI that you want. And so I'm so proud of what we've built. It's such a beautiful thing. And I tell people, there's just, when you come to a ThriveIN convening, there is a power that I fully can't explain of when you get Black women in the same space with the same mindset. And y'all know it, if you with your girls and everything, it's just a beautiful thing. Sometimes it's like church. You just got to be there and catch the spirit in the atmosphere.
Oh, for sure. I love that. And I love this idea of glass breaking confidence. So talk a little bit about what is happening in the program that is enabling you to kind of pour into people like that.
Yeah, well, we come in and we are very honest about removing the veil. What is your current sense of self? Do you like yourself? Do you believe that you have the skills? Do you have not an inflated confidence, but do you have a solid confidence to understand that you are capable and qualified of whatever you want to get out of life? Might you have some fears in taking that step? And so we're very honest about that. And also, what are some of the stressors and the burdens that you might have? Again, we have women come through our program who are caretakers for family members, who are the primary breadwinners for their family. We have women who've come in and are battling they have 2 jobs. And they're making the time to do this. And so low key, we got to have some therapy, and we have therapists who come in, but we got to understand what we're working with. And so let's lift the veil and understand, who are you at your core? Good, bad, indifferent, happy, sad, whatever. So there's that. And that is how, when we can understand your current state, and if all y'all do therapy, acceptance and awareness is the first step. Yeah. Then we can put some action behind it. And this is where the community comes in, where people literally, and that safe space comes in, where women say, y'all, I want this job, but I'm scared. They're going to say I don't know if they're going to do it. And you have 15 voices who are like, girl, do you know how many degrees you have? How do you know how much experience you had? Do you know that white man who is 2 levels above you ain't did none of the stuff that you done? Go apply for the job and quit playing. And then we also say, we have experts who come in and say, okay, where's the gap in your skill set? And let's figure out how, here is the education, here are the skills, here is the additional enhancements that you need to get after what you want. And that is how confidence is made. When you strengthen that sense of self, and when you strengthen on the quantitative side, the skills that you bring to the table. And so qualitatively and quantitatively, we are really helping Black women understand their power, their superpowers really, and their strengths. But I also tell people that there is equally as much power in understanding and being honest about your areas of opportunity, both within yourself and within professionally how you show up. And when we can get honest about that, we can start to create very customized strategies to help you get what you want. And all that has to happen in a safe space. You got to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's powerful on 2 levels. So one, the idea of balance, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's asking for something, right? Like that they haven't earned, that they haven't worked for, right? But what folks are saying is, when I've done the work, when I've put in the time, right? Don't give me another hoop to jump through. Don't put another barrier in my way. So that's really powerful. And then the other thing around community, I always tell people, you got to have your person at work, right? Like, you got to have somebody, because these jobs are hard. These spaces can be hard. And so you've spoken a lot about community. So talk a little bit about why community is so essential and how you've built that into your model.
Yeah, well, I truly believe that none of us can, y'all gonna hear me say thrive 50 million times, but none of us can really truly thrive, and we're not supposed to do it alone. We are not supposed to do it alone. There is power in being around people who look like you, people who understand and can relate to you, people who are rooting for you, people who don't gatekeep and will gladly hand you over the keys to get to what you want. And as simple as and cliche as that can sound, everyone does not have it, which is why, the girls come to me. And I'm so happy that from a business standpoint and a humanistic standpoint, I can feel that void for them. And, community is everything. Think about the days, your worst days, and you're alone and you're isolated and you just go deeper in the hole. But again, when you have those people who can really counter those negative narratives in your mind, who can tell you, here's how to do it, and are literally, sometimes you just need a hug when you walk in the door. Sometimes after a long day of work, you just need, girl, you look good. Or girl, let me give you my braider. Or something like that. All of those little things just help take the stress off. When you know that you're not doing it alone, when you know that you are not the only one. You may be the only one at the office or in the room or at the table, but with ThriveIN, you are never the only one in our community. That is something that I can guarantee when you come into a ThriveIN space. And so there's expertise in community, there's acceptance in community, there's reflection in community, and there's vulnerability in community. And we need all of that. There's empathy in community. And so again, just think about, sometimes you ever had like a 5-hour brunch with your girls and then you leave me like, whew, I needed that type of thing. And all of that matters. And when you do that in the right spirit of sisterhood, true sisterhood, because some of y'all be playing with the use of that word, but when you do that in true sisterhood and purity, it is such a beautiful thing. And I believe that Black women, we are one of the best hype people of one another. Find me another group of people who can hype one another up like Black women.
Listen, yes. Yes, I saw this clip the other day. It was some talk show, and this woman was talking about that thing. It also makes me think of this stand-up comedy that Amanda Seals did, where she's also talking about like how we hype people. Like, yes, polka dots, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes,
Period.
yes. Okay, so you talked about women leaving your program, like getting the promotion, getting the job, getting the pay increase, starting starting the business. How are you measuring the success of WorkSpace? Like, how do you know that it's having impact, and what are those outcomes?
Yeah, so we measure it on the quantitative and the qualitative side. So remember, I told you I'm a marketer. So we measure it in data. And so we have emission and also post surveys that we do to evaluate the program. And then we also check in with our women. And so in those evaluations, we specifically ask, has your salary gone up based on, and can you attribute that to things you've directly learned in the WorkSpace program? And to date, 83% of women say yes. And I'm like, oof, okay. And I'm overly ambitious to a fault. So now I'm like, okay, let's get that up to like 95. And so, but we ask those things. Have you built the community? What have you achieved since you've done WorkSpace? And can you directly attribute that to the program? Qualitatively, we also check in with the women. When you are a part of WorkSpace, you are part of a forever community. And so we have social gatherings and meetups. We invite alumni back. We feature them in a lot of our programming where they can tell their stories, and they have the personal stories. And those are the best moments for me, where women can come up to me and say, Siobhan, I quit that job I was always complaining about. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they say, with WorkSpace, I never would have been able to blank. Or without ThriveIN, I never would have been able to do X. And so on the qualitative side, we hear the stories and the things that are happening. And, when I think about the cohort in 2020 and 2021, they are still connected with ThriveIN. They are still providing testimonials on behalf of ThriveIN. We had a conference last year, a few months back, and a lot of those women from that first cohort came back and were just sharing all these things and all this personal and professional growth. And so we measure it in both ways, because there's power in both. But it's such amazing stories. And for me as a business owner, I mean, what more can you ask? That lives are, the needle is moving in such a beautiful way.
Yes. Now, Siobhan, you talked about intentionally keeping it intimate. And so, 25 people, there's obviously going to be people who don't get in the first cohort. So people who are looking for the leadership development that you're talking about here, and what would you say their first step is in getting it, right? Be it through ThriveIN or elsewhere?
I would say, be clear about what do you want? And what does leadership look like for you? Is that just a title? what does the day-to-day responsibilities of being a leader look like? Is that currently within your company? Is this something you can do in entrepreneurship? Might you be able to do that in your community? So really have a very concise definition of what the vision for leadership is, and also maybe have some aspirational examples. I want to do similar to this person, or I'm inspired by this person's story, but have like a guiding star for that. And then do your research. There are so many leadership programs, in person, virtual. Figure out how can you best learn? How can you best be open and be vulnerable with yourself and with others so you can get what you need? That might be one-on-one with an executive coach. And the pricing for that is very, it runs the gamut. And so sometimes it's not as expensive as you think. And we at ThriveIN can connect y'all to some, and y'all's hosted this podcast is a fantastic one. So there's so many resources. But understand that. And where do you need the subject matter expertise? Do you feel comfortable in a leadership program of a bunch of white people? And you might. Because maybe the focus is like leadership in the nonprofit space, or leadership, it might be very, very niche. Or do you need something like a ThriveIN? And if you can't do WorkSpace, come to our events, engage with our platform where you feel most prepared, most, your guard is let down in a room that looks like you. And so again, understand what you want, what you need, and what you still need to get. And then do your research around that. And, worst case, just, DM me and we will push you in the right direction. You know how churches sometimes when people come up at altar call and they say, if you don't join our church, we will help you find a church home. And that's kind of how ThriveIN is. If I can't do it, Black woman, I will help you figure it out.
I love that. I love that. So, She Ventures Out is worldwide. And so I imagine that there are people who are listening who are like, I'm not in Columbus, right? So talk about like, what are future plans for WorkSpace? Like, is there, potentially a virtual component? Are you thinking about expanding WorkSpace to other cities?
Yeah. Oh, you in my notebook already and all of my little business things. But the goal is to go worldwide. And the goal is to really expand ThriveIN both in person and virtually beyond Columbus, Ohio. And I say that because the need is so great. And I truly, truly believe in what we've built and the void that we are filling in a way that feels so, I tell people we are the Black work BFF that every Black girl deserves. Yeah. And you can't get that out of every brand. You might be able to get pieces, but you can't get it all created by and for Black women. And so for me, when I look at the depth of the challenges of Black women in the workplace, for me, I'm like, I can't keep it in Columbus because there's so many women. And so I say that to say we are exploring how can we create, WorkSpace and create a virtual component. We're still figuring out the nuts and bolts of what that looks like because it also got to make money, y'all. And then we also do have a couple target markets that we are looking at to really go in events and to really start to do some convenings of women. And so 2025, I think, is going to be a really blessed and breakout year for ThriveIN, where some of y'all across the world in the Southwest and in the Midwest, that's the most I'll give you right now, y'all will have an opportunity to engage with ThriveIN. And worst case, join our mailing list and follow us on social media because we also have a lot of resources and information. And also, if you need to laugh as well, that is there that you can still tap into the community.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. One of the, kind of biggest lessons I learned from, moving to another state and, taking a job there is when you don't have that network, right? When you're not in a space where, people truly understand, diverse leadership, so on and so forth. And that can be very isolating. Absolutely. So, I love the fact that the expertise that you're building, the talent that you're building, that you have and that you continue to build through ThriveIN is going to expand to other places. Girl, and if I could shout out to Portland, because baby, they need you. Got it. Yes, absolutely. But yes, more of this. And, so you talked about the Southwest, Midwest, but I also imagine if, there's somebody somewhere else that, wanted to reach out to you from like technical assistance, right? To say, we're doing something like this and we haven't been able to get it off the ground.
Yeah, what I would say to them is to first, sometimes as business owners, and this is what I found that works for me, we sometimes focus so much on scale. We want in the first 6 months to a year, we want to conquer the world. And the best businesses, have a very clear brand essence. And who are you at your core? What do you believe? And then your positioning is, how are you different in the market? And what is the reason to believe is what I call it. Why should others really pour in to what you're doing from an emotional standpoint? So I say that to say, don't start so focused on the scale, but focus on really like clarifying the vision and the package and the offering of what you're doing. I also say, especially if you're looking to cultivate, or develop programming for a specific audience, focus on community first. Because even we think about this with ThriveIN. Black women are not a monolith. And we've seen this on social media. There are so many niche groups and segments of people, and you can find it on social media. You can likely find a page for people who are left-handed and own Black dogs. There is something for everyone. And so be very, very clear about who you serve, because the market is competitive, but there always is a white space. There always is a gap. And so again, what is your niche? Because to just say I want to do leadership development, that to me is a little passive. That to me can get a little lost. But leadership development for who? You want to do it for Black women. Okay, is there a certain age group? Is there a certain industry that you want to focus on? Is there a specific, when we say leadership development, is it specific for mid-level managers who want to go to the C-suite? Or is it for more of your entry level who really want to get those very foundational skills so that they can start to be managers? What does it look like? And so really crystallize your community, because what I can tell you for sure is that once you've developed your community, then you figure out how to monetize it, because people will spend their dollars on what speaks to them and what can move the needle with them in a very personal way. That's where a lot of brand loyalty comes from now. It's not just, think about why people love Target. You go in and you're like, oh, I go in for toilet paper, but I can do a lap. It's emotional. And so think about that with your brand, and when you're building this programming, and then start to create programming and skill sets and find leaders who align with that. But get the essence and get the community, and then start to scale.
So, Siobhan, I think this part is so important, right? Because a lot of what She Ventures Out, right, is about people embarking out, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever transition that they're in. And you said it in the beginning, right? How you started with dinners, right? Mm-hmm. So kind of take us through your timeline a little bit. So how, what was the timeline from starting to the dinners to where you are now?
Whew. I mean, almost 10 years, if I'm being honest with you. It had to be maybe 2017 or 2018, I started a blog called Adore Color. And the idea was that we know that Black women are not a monolith. We know that we are colorful. And so we are going to talk about all the things that, Black women can tap into. And thinking back now, I'm like, well, that's like 500 things, girl. So what brand was that about to be? But I was like, okay. So did that and had blog posts and social media. So the community was starting to form around Black women who could kind of buy into, this idea of a brand that speaks to all of me, and not just one part of me. And then I started to say, okay, I think I need to get more focused, and I want to do some in-person convenings. And so in around 2018, 2019, I created a dinner series in Columbus, Ohio called A Seat at Our Table. And the idea is that it was an invite-only event for Black women who are wanting empowerment, who are wanting community, but who are also wanting to get very specific skills and best practices from industry leaders. And so we brought in, Connie Orlando, who's EVP at BET, Sheree Jackson, who was then relationships editor at Essence Magazine. She's also a phenomenal author and businesswoman. Please tap into both of those women, where we started to convene women. And there I could start to see in person the power of what happens when you put us all in the room, and we can have a very safe transaction and exchange of barriers, of best practices, and we can get cute, and we can hype each other up, and it doesn't feel stuffy. I don't walk in and feel like, with the up down. I walk in and it's like, you are beautiful. Where did you get your shoes? Mm-hmm. And all that. It's a different vibe. And so I start to say, okay, for me as a person, I enjoyed being the cultivator and curator of that. And I saw that women were paying for that. I think the dinner that we created, because events are not cheap. I always tell people, don't do an event if you're not going to make no money. Mm-hmm. So keep your operational costs low. But I think the ticket for that was maybe almost $100. And so I saw women were spending money for what I was cultivating. And I was also working at the time. So then that started to get dormant for a little bit. And then I just had this idea. And this is why I say also the beginning stages of ThriveIN was really a God-given thing that I'm so blessed to have, where I said, I think it needs to be something else. And the marketer in me said, I think we need to get more focused. And I thought about, what do I value as a person? And I value and I enjoy working and career and moving forward in my career. And I said, because it got to make sense for me. And so I would go to the downtown library in Columbus, Ohio for about 6 months. And I had a notebook, and it's somewhere still here, where I started brainstorming names. Then I was on Canva and I'm like putting together logos. I'm figuring out a mission statement. And I'm like, are we focusing on wealth building for Black women? I'm like, no, everybody do that. And that's not my passion. Are we focusing on, and I was like, Siobhan, what are you most passionate about? And I'm like, it's my work and my life. Like, I want both to align and I want to really move forward in both. And then I said, okay, what can we call it? And at the time, I was thinking I was locked into like this kind of 2-syllable model: iPhone, LinkedIn, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, it got to be short, it got to be catchy. And I said, what is a unifying element of all Black women? Because I knew I wanted this to serve Black women. And what is it that's true for you, Siobhan? And I'm like, I want to thrive. To thrive means to grow and to advance and to flourish personally. And so I said, is that not what we all want? You know, this idea of being this lifelong learner, of, you know, ever evolving human beings who are growing and developing and are getting joy and abundance and all of these things along the way while moving forward. And so I said, oh, ThriveIN. I said, okay, that works. Let me go make up a little logo. Let me figure out and put it all together. And it was probably about a 6 to 8 month process. And again, every Saturday morning, I was living with my sister at the time. Like 9 o'clock, I would have my book bag, my laptop. I would go in. It's a downtown library. So, you know, there's a lot of people who are homeless who would go in the winter. It was a warming station. So I had my little friends there who were playing chess and everything. And I just locked in. And I put the work in and the equity in, which sometimes is not cute. I had a full-time job at the time, but I was getting excited the more I built it. And I clearly saw what this could be. And then again, when the murder of George Floyd happened, I said, I built so much of the foundations for the brand. And then that happened. And I said, that's it. And I said, okay, let's get the LLC and let's really start putting this together, because I clearly see where and how this brand really needs to be constructed to address the needs of the market. And that's it.
Yeah, I love that. And so thank you for sharing that. One of the things that stuck out to me too is, you know, how you were talking about monetization. And, you know, I was talking to another friend who is also an executive coach, and, you know, he was talking about how he's been building his practice, and he's been in business for, I want to say 6 or 7 years now. And he is intentionally just focused on people of color from a coaching standpoint. And so he talked about how, you know, his runway is different, right? Because he has to do a lot of work around explaining the benefits of coaching and really getting people bought into that, right? Because generally when we think about professional development, we're used to like either our companies paying for professional development or us not getting it. And so I'd love for you to talk about kind of that monetization journey, right? Like how you began to think about, you know, because it sounds like almost from the outset you were saying, yeah, people are going to pay for these things.
Yeah, people are going to pay, but I led with the brand and not being a business owner. And so that was a learning curve, and so I say that to say, when I first started ThriveIN and we were doing the dinners, I was fine with then, not now, spending a lot of money up front, because I'm thinking, I know what it's going to look like on social, and I know how I can amplify this, and I know the experience I want to create for the women. So let's invest in that. And then, you know, I'm building an event for, you know, $3,000-$4,000, and I'm inviting, you know, 30, 20 people for like $60 a ticket. I ain't making no money. And I didn't have sponsors and all that. And so I'm like, it's a labor of love. And I'm like, okay, girl, but that ain't going to pay, you know, that's not gonna pay rent. And so I say that to say I started with the imbalance because I was so excited about building the brand. And where I've learned now, and you know, this has come from coaching, this has come from some trial and error, is how to really monetize community. And for me, what that looks like is we have sponsors who pour in to ThriveIN. Again, we are an extension of a lot of companies, what they are already doing and believe around diversity and inclusion. And so that has been really helpful for the business in terms of generating profit. And then I've also learned how to do more with less, because what I also started to figure out when I got really clear around ThriveIN and why women were investing, it wasn't for the cater meal. And it wasn't because I had these, long tablescapes and all that stuff. That's cute. They were coming for community. And so the creative person in me started to say, okay, your venue doesn't have to be a $10,000 downtown hotel. You can do it at a smaller space that has a different type of look. And if the crowd is right, if the vibe is right, that is what women will pay for. And so that is where I can start to play with the price point, because that is what you cannot get everywhere else. And so when I had the sponsors, when I really started to figure out where the value was and what I was offering, and started to price that based on the market, based on what I knew, again, the value of it was, that is where we started to see a profit. And over the years, we started to scale more, where, we're now doing conferences and a lot of other events, but so much of community is in person. And so I got to watch the numbers, because I tell people now, I say, I do not do an event if I'm not going to make any money. Because what I have to, we can do both. We can focus on the mission and convene women, but it has to make sense for the business as well. And so I just started to, I learned over these past few years how to be really strategic with our operational expenses and how to create value for less, but still being able to charge more. And again, the community from that starts to grow, because the offer of the community and the exclusivity of it and the power of it, that is something that women and consumers will pay for. And again, it goes back to, what is your essence and what are you about? And that's what people are paying for. They're not paying for, again, candles on a table and a table.
Right.
They're not.
So Siobhan, how have you, in your leadership and what you want for yourself, how has that evolved since when you first started?
It has evolved so much. God is a good God, and therapy helps. I tell people, I created ThriveIN for me. I was the 20-something who I was like, I need 12 degrees. All this debt is cute, because now we got to pay for them. And I will work 80 hours a week and do all this, because I would always say, can't nobody outwork me. And I'm just like, okay, no, what are the results? And let's focus on that. And so I say that to say that when I started ThriveIN and early in my career, I would just work. And I myself was getting burnt out. And so I have learned how to say, in what I am offering women, I have to be a reflection and live and breathe it. And I also have to say, with the business that I've created, I have created out of what I was lacking. And I found that I was not the only person and the only Black woman who was lacking that. So it's been a very, very personal journey for me. And I will say how I've evolved along the way is being an entrepreneur, it will humble you. Ask almost any entrepreneur. You and Kiana, yes, you've talked about this as a corporate leader going to entrepreneur. It's different. The power shifts, and you are asking a lot of things from a lot of people. You're putting yourself out there in a way that, often you haven't done before. Oh, there's a risk with that, of criticism, of failure, of all those things. And so I have learned to do it scared, to do it doubtful with the business, because I want to make money, and I believe that I'm building something bigger than myself. And so I can't be my own limitation. And I have also had to get really clear with myself. When I say do it scared and do it doubtful, for me, where are those feelings coming from? Because a lot of that ain't even tied to your business. A lot of that is tied to how I've looked at myself since childhood and all these other things that me and my therapist be unpacking. And so, for me as a strategist, I get very clear about the why for brands and for consumers. And I've had to do that for myself as a business owner. And so I say that to say, I'm at a point now where I'm able to take what I evaluate as risk and do these big things, because I'm able to say, why is this scary for me? And what's holding me back? And how can I get through that? And what is the power of that? Am I excited by what ThriveIN is building? Would I, as a person, go to something like this? Do I need it? And again, so all of that stems from just the more I learn about myself and start to break through my own barriers and limitations, it has made me such a better business owner, because my own sense of self has strengthened so much. But again, that's also been like a 10-year journey. And ask any entrepreneur on any day, sometimes it is ever evolving. There are some days where I'm like, they popping on social media. What am I doing with my little business? And I'm like, okay, where is that coming from? Because I'm doing great things. And so my mindset has just shifted so much to be able to question and attack a lot of those narratives in my mind.
Yeah, I love that. I just recorded an episode of the podcast that's about external validation, right? And quieting that noise and just really tapping into who we know ourselves to be, who we, finding that intrinsic value. And so I love hearing that from you. I also was listening to something and it was talking about not being afraid to break your business, right? Like, so, from where you started to where you are now, like being comfortable pivoting in aspects of it or the whole thing. So was there anything that you started with where it wasn't working, it didn't fit where you were headed, where you had to kind of go inside yourself and say, I'm okay breaking this part of it?
Yeah, it was honestly, we ThriveIN in those early days. We did a lot of networking events. When COVID happened, we partnered with Easton Town Center, which is a big shopping center out here in Columbus, Ohio. And we did these drive-in movie nights. There were all these really big convenings. And visually, and when I look at the story of it, it was popping. And when I got home and crunched the numbers, I'm like, okay. It's almost like you go to this great party and have this great night, but you realize that your bank account is negative because you bought the dress, did the hair, the nails, and everything. So did you have a good time? And was it worth it? And so I really had to take a step back and say, where am I focusing my resources? Where am I focusing my time? Because just doing these events for the optics and to convene Black women, it is taking so much labor, the planning, the on-site, I'm assembling a team. And at that point, I'm asking friends and volunteers. I'm like, girl, what you doing Saturday? You want to come work the door? And all these things. And so I was getting tired and I wasn't making money. I wasn't getting the ROI that I wanted. The brand was growing, but I said, Siobhan, that is not being a business owner. I said, you can do that on social media and just create something. And so I had to say, okay, let's recalibrate and let's really focus on where we know that there is traction and is a need, which is going less on just the community convening, but focusing on community and convening with a very specific focus of Millennial and Gen Z women who want community and want to convene with this shared mission and goal to thrive in work and also life. And we lead with the career side. And within that, we are helping enhance who you are personally. And I had to get very clear around what that offer looks like. And again, the community, I said with WorkSpace, I said, I can have sponsors who support that. That now we're in our 4th year, so it's very turnkey. We have a curriculum. And so the resources and the labor to power it are not as intensive. So I said, okay, this is a good, consistent kind of money driver for the business. I am a smaller team. My prayer is, God, send me my help and let me be open to it. But that's a whole nother episode. I got control issues. But I said, doing all these little events is tiring me out. And so let's have big moments for ThriveIN, where we just had our rework summit. We're planning another event in April and a lot of other things where I said, I can manage that. I can sell that to sponsors. I can get the people in the room. I have the planning that time that makes sense for me. I can price it out where it makes sense for the business. And so I had to get really clear around the cadence of what we were doing, the consistency of what we were doing, and getting much more focused and having really honest conversations with myself about the operational costs. Because again, I started with, I just want a cute little event that'll look cute on social media and let me just get Black people together. And I said, okay, girl, that is not sustainable at all unless you are a millionaire and you can just do this. But that's not going to work. So I had to make a real pivot, and my pivot was getting much more focused in the offering.
Yeah, I love that. The clarity, the discipline that you have to, because it's easy to chase shiny objects, right? Exactly. And I love how you consistently pause and kind of filter that through this lens of what matters to me, what are my values, so on and so forth. And I think that that's a powerful lesson for anyone, like for sure, who's trying to be an entrepreneur, but also people in career, right? Because I hear a lot of times people say, oh, that job looks really interesting, or that job looks really sexy, blah, 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 but not filtering it through that lens. And so I love both of those things.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll add is what helped me with that was I ain't think of all this in my own little mind. I had to be vulnerable and get help and counsel from other business owners. I had to get a financial expert to look at my books and who said, first, how do you spend your money personally? Because that is going to dictate how you spend your money for your business. Where are you spending most of your time? And is that making you the most money? I had to talk to business owners who were community, who had brick and mortars and all these things that would say, Siobhan, why are you focusing on this and spending all this money here when you know that you have this X group of people who need X? Go chase that further. And so you have to be really vulnerable with yourself. Again, you have to understand who you are and what are your limitations and where can you find advocates and allies and expertise to help fill that gap. All of that goes into a pivot. It rarely is making a pivot a solo move. And if it is, you have amazing self-awareness and acumen, and shout out to the people who can do that.
For sure, for sure. So to that point, so who inspires you and kind of, or what inspires you and keeps you going?
I would say first the women, the Black women that we serve. You know, again, I do this from a personal standpoint and as a business owner. And when I hear Black women, we bring so much to how we work. And we compartmentalize so much how we work. So much of that is tied to our value of self. Sometimes we come in and we have toxic relationships at home. Again, we might be the only caretaker or primary provider for our families. We might have dreams that have been deferred. And so when I see all of that, I just say, as a human, we are too beautiful to let our dreams go to waste and to not turn them into reality. And as much as I cannot be dormant to Black women who are struggling with all of that, personally and professionally. And so I feel like it is a mission for me and a God-led charge that I am fulfilling. And so that is really what motivates me. And, you know, for me, it's also generational. When I think about, you know, my legacy and what I want to, you know, to be remembered for, what I want to pass down to mentees and, you know, children and all of those things, it is building something beyond myself. It really is. And so at the end of the day, if, you know, not just Siobhan, but if this brand that I've built can help to empower and better people's lives, that is what motivates me. And I also say that, you know, I'm thankful enough to have women in my circle who are doing it, who are thriving business owners, who have families and husbands and kids. And they're like, no, you can do it. Here's how you can do it, because you may not be able to do it all in the same day, but you can do it. So do not get discouraged in your well-doing. I have entrepreneurs and people who pour into me, who I look at and aspire my businesses to grow and have the respect and the esteem that they have. And we have conversations as well. And so I have people who are aspirational. I have my mission that feels very personal, that leads me. I have this legacy that I want to leave for the world. And, you know, at the end of the day, Lord, I just want to be pleasing in your sight. So if this is what I feel like I am called to do, I will put on the full armor of God, and I know that you will figure it out for me. So let me just surrender to the calling and go forward to it.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So we started something new in our first episode or our second episode. Shout out to Michelle Farley for helping me tighten up these questions. So this is going to be our She Ventures Out 20 Questions Rapid Fire Edition. So question number 1, who is your basketball GOAT?
Michael Jordan on GP. I'm not a sports person, but Jordan.
That's right. There we go. So would you rather climb a mountain, sail across the ocean, or fly to space?
I don't like heights. I'll sail.
Okay.
Maybe some drama me. I will sail.
Have you ever said yes to something that scared you?
Every single day.
Awesome. Which do you prefer, working in silence or blasting music while you work?
I'm a Gemini, so I live in duality, a little bit of both. But if I had to pick, let me blast some music, because my playlist, y'all, give me the ox.
You might have to start something on Spotify so we can talk to you. Look. Okay, do you believe in luck?
I do not.
Okay. Would you rather write a book, host a talk show, or create a startup?
Write a book.
Do you hit snooze in the morning?
Every single time. If people know me, 15-minute grace period for anything. Give me a second.
What motivates you more, proving someone wrong or making yourself proud?
Making myself proud.
Is a venture best with a plan or just winging it?
I'm a plan girl. Give me an itinerary. Give me a roadmap. I'm trying to be more spontaneous, but what we doing?
Have you ever taken a risk that you considered a calculated leap?
Absolutely. Most of my risks are calculated.
Okay. Would you rather have unlimited energy, unlimited ideas, or unlimited time?
Unlimited time. I could do so much.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I already have unlimited ideas.
Yeah. And that would stress me out, because I'm like, are they just staying ideas? At some point, I got to execute.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Do you believe everything happens for a reason?
Yes.
What sounds more exciting, a surprise party or a surprise adventure?
A surprise party.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl. I'm trying to shift it, but I really think I'm my best at like 12 a.m.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm up.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. What's scarier, public speaking or jumping out of a plane?
Jumping out of a plane.
Right, so we know, yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer working toward a 5-year plan or embracing spontaneity? And I think it was the 5-year plan.
It's the 5-year plan. You figuring me out.
Exactly. Are you a perfectionist?
A little bit. Again, I'm in therapy, but I am very type A. Yes.
Do you believe confidence is learned or natural?
It's learned.
Okay. Would you rather rewind time or fast forward to the future?
Rewind.
Yeah. Last thing, can success be defined in one word?
No.
Okay. All right. Siobhan, where can our listeners find you?
You can follow me on Instagram and reach out to me, please, on Instagram at me so Chevy. And if you want to follow ThriveIN, Instagram, we ThriveIN. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. Our website is thrivein.co. Join our mailing list because that is where all of our information, you heard it first when you are on our mailing list. So tap in, please.
Awesome. Siobhan, this has exceeded my expectations. You are just the most awesome guest. So thank you so much. So many jewels dropped. Y'all, this has been She Ventures Out. I am full, so I know y'all are full. Make sure you are following us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, keep venturing out, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Boxland Media. Think big.